Hyungwon Kang, photographer as well as columnist who won the Pulitzer Award twice. So the title of his speech is Authentic Photojournalistic Moments. Please give him a big round of applause.
Hi everybody. My name is Hyungwon Kang. I am a Korean American now, but I spent my first 13 years in Korea, where I was born back in a long time ago, about 6 decades ago. A little bit about myself. I grew up in the west coast of the United States. Went to UCLA. I studied political science and international relations. But my real passion was in photography. So I started working for newspapers, daily newspapers, starting college. And I ended up working for the LA Times for 10 years through 1997. And I can tell you that my newspaper experience, about 15 years of it, defined my career as a photojournalist. And in American journalism, we have editorial department which publishes the truthful content, and then we have advertising which sells ideas, and then we have something in between called op-ed, opinion section. And while there's a tall wall between advertising and editorial, we have to be mindful of each side every day, pretty much. For example, whenever we cover plane crashes, we immediately pull all of the advertisements related to travel, because we don't want to offend the readers with dead people from a plane crash with an offer to travel flying on an airplane. So that just shows you how factual content in editorial is directly related to how and affects how advertising works. And I can tell you that even in politics, we have people called spin doctors who are always trying to skew the facts. And just like an advertisement, spin doctors need to speak with the factual stuff in order to be marketable and in order to be functioning. And let me just start by showing you some examples of the pictures I've taken during my 4 decades of photojournalism career, and give you perhaps some ideas about what truthful situations, authentic situations could do to whatever message that you're trying to get across. So this is one of the Korean temples in Gyeongsang, North Gyeongsang province. As you can see, Korea is a playground for anybody with cameras. We have, because of the rich history in Korea and ancient culture, there's just so much to photograph in Korea. But I'm going to go back and show you some of the images I made over the years that are truthful moments. Of course, all of my moments are truthful. I don't set up any pictures. That's the guideline for American photojournalism, that we do not set up any pictures. It's always found or real situations. But so I started out as a photojournalist for the LA Times, and we talked about how in American tradition, Thomas Jefferson defined it really well. He says, if he had a choice of choosing a government without newspapers or newspapers without government, he would choose the latter. That's how not only significant but crucial the role of the newspaper is and media is in American democracy and democracy everywhere. That's me during one of our news meetings, and there I learned the power of basically telling the truth, the authentic situations, where we defined what readers should read from the newspaper. The man on my left is Shelbycoff III, who's a legendary newspaperman in American journalism. That's me traveling to North Korea. And even in North Korea, which is a totalitarian state, what I found was that people did not interfere with what I was trying to do. They were afraid of responsibilities, but they say the responsibility of me being in North Korea is with whoever approved my visit. They didn't necessarily care about what I photographed. And I was able to photograph this high school teacher in a bus. And to me, North Koreans look just like South Koreans. And they speak the same language, eat similar food, and share the same culture. North Korean students in a subway. And you can see how these authentic situations create a perception that is the reality. And that's what photography is. We're in the business of creating perception and showing perception. This is one of the definitive pictures of the LA riots that I took, which was published all over. This is an interesting image because this was a found situation of Korean American young men with guns protecting businesses and people in Koreatown when LAPD, the police department, evacuated from Koreatown and basically did not provide any protection. For an Asian man to appear on American media showing such masculinity, this was never been done before. There was no such advertisement that showed sexy and masculine Asian men in American media. But my editorial, truthful image changed that perception. That was 1992. In the last 30 years, 31 years, you can see in American media Asian men who are masculine, sexy, and other times dominant in their roles in movies and dramas. So the perception is created by these visual images, and that is basically the goal of photojournalism, to have a visual impact that is unforgettable. And if an advertising image can create a visual image that's unforgettable, you have won the audience, and you have won the competition. Here's an image of a man shooting into the air as the rioters were approaching his market. Man showing up with a shotgun to protect the shop. Like I said, these images have never appeared in American media until I covered the actual news where this took place. And before this 1992 LA riots, Asian men were treated horribly by American history. In 1942, all of Japanese descent men were sent into concentration camps, internment camps. And before then, when Qing dynasty workers completed the transnational railways from the West Coast all the way to Utah, they were kept out of the commemoration picture that showed all the workers that connected the railroads. And then, of course, Qing dynasty workers were forbidden from bringing their families from home. So for a Korean American man to appear in American media in a truthful situation, it was a paradigm shifting moment for people's perception. Anyways, these authentic moments, like I said, equals credibility. Credible. But in addition to authentic moments, if a content creator understands history, the visual images can have additional context and meaning. For example, this tea bowl, which is a very common tea bowl in Korea, is revered in Japan because it was shared by samurais, where a bunch of them sitting around together sharing one large tea bowl so that nobody was poisoned. they can drink from the same people. One of these bowls is like a national treasure in Japan. So the 1592 Japanese invasion of Korea actually is the Pottery War. And so if you understand the history, pictures of pottery can really have a lasting and additional context and meaning. Here's a President Clinton and Hillary Clinton shaking hands with a clergy after a Sunday service at a church across the street from the White House. And this is a man who was discredited with his scandal, but he's appearing at a church every Sunday showing other sides of his character. And here's the first couple celebrating first ever election of a sitting First Lady as the U.S. Senator in American history. Here's a portrait, first official portrait of George W. Bush that I took one day before the inauguration on January 19th. January 20th is the official inauguration of American president every 4 years. And it's the worst weather day in Washington, D.C. Some people die from that weather because it's usually the coldest and nastiest. Anyways, this was the picture taken the day before, and there's no Photoshop. It's all authentic. And and the photographer's job is to use that authenticity to deliver whatever message that you are trying to deliver. This is the last day of the presidency for President Clinton, greeting Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife. This was the first day of Vice President Biden at the time, on the night of the inauguration, celebrating the inaugural ball with his wife. President Obama, who, did you know that President Obama's middle name was Hussein? He never used that in public because America was fighting war against Islamic terrorism. And he's the one who ordered the assassination of bin Laden. And for me, the Marine One helicopter landing on the White House South Lawn was the backdrop to create a portrait like this of a strong American president. So the freedom of the press and the freedom of the expression, which is what makes America great, it comes with immense responsibility because we are always trading the truth, and that's the sanctity of American editorial journalism. But at the same time, there's a lot of symbolism in visual messages that we can deliver. And these authentic moments from ordinary settings, it could be just a timeless image of America's freedom of religion, for example. This was my image of the 9/11 attack. America has no natural enemy on its borders. Because Mexico is friendly to the U.S. in the south, and Canada is also friendly to the U.S. on the north. But the war visited America by these 9/11 terrorists who crashed the airplane into the Pentagon. And for me, the image was, this is an unforgettable image of Washington under attack. And anybody who's been to Washington knows that the Washington Monument, the distance from Washington Monument and Pentagon is quite far. But in photography, we're able to compress that into a single picture. This is an image of a B-2 stealth bomber, first aerial picture ever to be released or open to press to cover. And I was on an Air Force aircraft to document this. This is one of the Korean images. Dancheom is called, coloring of the woods in Korean hanok buildings on a rainy day. This is what they call the smile of Sheila. the 1,000-year-old kingdom that lasted, one of the longest reigning kingdom in world history. This is a neck of a pottery from Gaya period. Gaya is one of the fourth alliance of states during the Three Kingdom period. They lasted until around 650. This is a close-up picture of a bronze mirror from Korea. And this is one of the mysteries of Korean culture, how back in the Bronze Age and the Metal Age, as craftsmen in Korea, without help of microscope or magnifying glasses, was able to create patterns that are thinner than the strand of hair. Just shows you how advanced technologically they were back in prehistoric times in Korea. And by associating these ancient images or imagery from ancient Korea, you can create modern advertisement that backdates, increases its historical significance considerably. Same here. This is one of the historic petroglyphs, rock art that shows abstract drawing of a face, not to mention one of the only available whale hunting images in the world. The palaces in Seoul offer amazing backdrop for any kind of photography. This is one of the fortresses in Suwon Hwasong Fortress. This is in Gyeongsangbuk-do, Gyeongsang Sewon. Dolmen, the coin door. This is what defines Korea as the happening place back in the Bronze Age, all over the world. You can find these dolmen anywhere in Korea, pretty much. There's more dolmens here than anywhere else in the world. This is one of the mountains in Chungcheong province. It's called Ma'isan, which means horse ear mountains. Camellia in Jeju Island. Jindale or azalea, which is blooming all over the Korea, north and south. Citrus farm in Jeju Island. This is fall colors in Gochang in Jeollabuk-do, or the North Jeolla province. Of course, Dokdo Island. The Tok in Dokdo means rock in ancient Korean and today's language. Bulguksa Temple. One of the Korean windows with hanji, the Korean dock paper. World's oldest printing was done on a dock paper that survives from about 7th century. You can find beautiful women all over Korea. And such faces like this. The face that's even more interesting than the mask he's holding. The rollers is a new thing in Korea. By the way, I got permission from this lady to take this picture publicly, even though there's no such thing as likeness rights in public. You still have to ask people, because people get offended when you take their pictures in public. This is one of the wooden printing blocks. Just amazing, amazing artistry. Ancient Sogdian soldier, stone statue from Shilla period, about 13 centuries old, still standing. The highest form of Buddhism art, Miruk Panga Sayusang. This is it's at the National Museum. 18.9 ton bell that still rings, world's largest. It would create amazing backdrop for any kind of ancient civilization. And not to mention the Korea's red deer called Gorani, Gochang Fortress, Sapsari dogs of Korea. They're the most ancient dogs of East Asia. Jeju horses. They have fossil footprints of Jeju horses for about 4,000 years ago. They just make amazing pictures. Of course, bullfighting, white herons. When it snows in Jeju, it looks like this. And even deers know how to express their heartfelt footprints. This is a sunset over the mudflats or Ketbar in Gochang, which is protected by UNESCO World Heritage. Thank you very much. I'm open to your questions about anything. Photography, America, history, Korean history. I'm a columnist on Korean history and culture now. You can get this visual history of Korea book if you could, and that will tell you more about Korea. It's in English and Korean now.
Well, why don't we give it a round of applause? Well, thank you. And now we'll move on to the Q&A session. I saw hands going on already, so please, okay, the microphone.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Kang, for your sharing. Amazing photos, massively impressive. My question is, do you retouch your photos? And if yes, and to what extent is retouching allowed in American journalism?
Okay, so I come from the tradition of printing my own pictures in the darkroom. So in Photoshop, most we do is control the contrast and whatever color correction that makes it look like real pictures. We don't add or subtract anything. That's the rule. And because of that, our pictures are authentic and truthful, and they have historical value.
Okay, another question? Please raise your hand.
제가 영어를 잘하지 못해서
It's okay.
한국어로 질문드릴게요. 네, 안녕하세요. 저는 계명대학교 학생으로 전예진이라는 학생입니다. 강연 되게 많이 재밌게 봤고 사진에서 얻는 뭔가 인사이트가 많은 것 같아서 너무 감사합니다. 이제 처음에 말씀하실 때 사진의 진정성을 담는다고 하셨는데 그 진정성을 담는다는 게 작가 개인의 감정에서 느껴지는 걸 최대한 표현을 하는 건지 아니면은 사람들이 느낄 수 있는 가장 객관적인 사진을 찍는 것인지가 궁금해서 질문을 꼭 드리고 싶었습니다.
객관성이라는 것은 사실적인 내용적인 객관성입니다. 주관 해석이 아니고, 그래서 누가 봐도 이것은 과장이 아니다 라는 기준이 객관성이 있습니다. 왜냐하면 사진도 글처럼 과장할 수 있거든요. 거짓말도 만들어낼 수 있고. 그렇지만 항상 이 진정성은 사람 누가 봐도 what a great moment로 끝나야죠. 어떻게 이런 장면을 놓치지 않았을까? 왜냐 인생에서의 모든 장면은 한 번밖에 없잖아요. 딱 한 번밖에. 그것을 생각하고 있었을 때 그것을 캡처할 수가 있거든요. 예측했을 때. 그래서 연출하지 않고 연출은 시츄에이션을 연출할 수 있죠. 좀 모멘트를 연출하지 않는 그런 객관성 그런 게 중요하겠죠. 사진으로 문맹을 벗어나는 거. Visual literacy is what's necessary now, because we live in the visual tsunami of pictures in 21st century. So being visually literate means learning to see good pictures, learning to differentiate poor storytelling to good storytelling. And so visual content creators has to be visually literate to make effective images. Otherwise, everything's just boring and whatever you see with your cell phone. So visual literacy, studying pictures, understanding what visual implication, meaningful historical contents within the picture means. If you combine all of that with great moment and great color, great graphic, good storytelling elements, then you have a successful set of pictures. Try to become visually literate people. Okay? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I myself have a question. However, because of time limitation, we will wrap up. Why don't we give a big hand once again to Mr. Kang? Okay, next we'll move on to the next presentation. Now I would like to invite Mr. Steph Hwang, Chairman and Founder of DNS Media. The title of his presentation